We are talking Incubus, New Beginnings, directed by Terry Alderholt. And this one stars Dee Wallace. Well, she's more of a supporting role, doesn't turn up until towards the end of the movie. But she is the recognisable name here. Now, this is a very low budget movie, and it focuses on a group of middle-aged women who are going to a lake house to celebrate one of their numbers getting a divorce. And it's kind of like a new beginnings celebration, so to speak. There's kind of this group of women. One of them brings like their teenage daughter. There's also like a gay guy that is there as well. And one of these women gives the lady that's getting divorced a gift of this kind of antique box. But what she doesn't know, this antique box actually contains the spirit of a demon, an incubus, that whilst these women are sleeping, manifests and basically rapes them to get them pregnant, and then later on, hopefully, steal their babies. Now, what will happen? You'll have to watch the movie and find out. So let's discuss what I think works. So this is, again, a very, very low budget movie. So let's keep those expectations in check. Now, one of the things I did like here was the casting. And why I say that is it's quite unusual to have a cast primarily full of kind of like middle-aged women. It makes it feel quite different. And these are, you know, these are experienced adults, and therefore they're not making the sort of the dumb decisions that kind of you get with the youngsters and sort of college-age characters that you normally get in a lot of kind of horror films. And yes, they're there kind of drinking and kind of smoking weed and all that kind of stuff, but generally speaking, they're not out shagging in the bushes and things like this. So I kind of quite like the fact, actually, that we had this kind of group of slightly older protagonists and stuff of kind of different walks of life, and some of their sort of interactions and things I did feel was kind of quite sort of authentic, and the acting isn't brilliant, let me just say that up at the front, but nonetheless I did think the kind of the chemistry between these characters did feel quite good, and some of the way that these sort of characters interacted with each other made them feel genuinely kind of like sort of friends. So that kind of I enjoyed, and I thought that was pretty good. Dee Wallace, when she turns up, she actually plays like a demonologist who they basically kind of call on when they realise what's kind of going on. And she plays a very against type sort of style demonologist. She's very kind of hyperactive and sort of high energy, not like the kind of like the crusty old sort of type of sort of characters that normally exist in this kind of space. So quite a kind of a fun and very lively performance from Dee Wallace. She doesn't have a huge amount of screen time, but when she's there, she certainly brightens up the proceedings. Now, you can argue that when these characters know that there's something that was going on, they should have left, and that is true. But outside of that, I will say they do try and take action. It's not that they're completely kind of passive. And I did like the way that they contacted priests, they contacted the theology department at the local university, who ultimately puts them in contact with this kind of demonologist. So I actually think, okay, fair enough, there is some sort of, they're doing their own research. You know, outside of moving away, not being in this house and stuff, I thought, okay, at least they're sort of being sort of proactive to a degree. The other thing I would say as well is the practical VFX I kind of liked. It's cheap, don't get me wrong. This movie, as I say, is low budget and the effects do look on the cheaper side, but they have gone all out, I would say, with making quite elaborate sort of prosthetic kind of demon makeup, and we also get a couple of kind of ghosts and things. And then they do quite a lot with it. So, for example, when this demon's like walking about, he's sort of dripping with like lake water and stuff, and it's so there's quite sort of a lot to it and stuff, despite the clearly low budget restrictions that are on this movie. So, you know, I have to say I quite enjoyed the sort of the VFX and stuff. Again, if you can kind of quantify it by saying it is in the kind of the low budget realm and all of that. And, you know, there's some sort of goofier kind of like CGI effects as well, which, you know, are a little silly. Adventures in kind of green screen land. But, you know, it is what it is on this sort of budget of movie. The pacing, I think, is reasonable. Once it kind of gets going, it's you know, it's quite a lot sort of going on, and it plays a little differently. It's not like where a movie where the cast of characters is getting killed off lots, because the demon's MO is not to kill them, it's to impregnate them. So there's that. So let's talk about maybe what doesn't work. And this is a very cheap movie, and it really does show. So those of you who don't like the kind of the rough and readiness of a B movie, then you may be put off by this film's kind of like particularly kind of lowbrow production value. Now, Dee Wallace shows up, and I have to say she stands out because she's obviously an experienced actress at this point, and she has been in a lot of B movies. But you know, outside of her, you realise when she turns up, you realise how sort of kind of low rent some of the kind of the other production value is here, to be honest. And there's just some sort of very sort of like poor filmmaking. So let me give you a couple of examples. There's one, for example, where we have one of our protagonists, a male character, is facing off against this incubus in his kind of human form. Now, when we see, and the camera kind of flips between these two characters who are kind of meant to be facing one another. Now, our protagonist character, when we see him, it's kind of like sort of evening, it's getting a little bit darker, but it's still sort of relatively light. It's probably around sort of like 6 p.m. in the afternoon. So it's kind of getting a little bit dim, but it's still clearly sort of like early evening. And then it flips back, and this is happening at the same time to our sort of demon character, and it is pitch black dark. And then they flip back, and it's just like, really? I mean, the attention to detail there is so poor. There's some just really shoddy editing and things here as well. There's a few instances that just didn't make sense to me. A couple of times you'll see characters seemingly get attacked, and then the next scene they're just completely fine, and then, you know, nothing is kind of like said about it. There's a scene where a character kind of looks under the bed, and there's like a kind of ghoul under there, and it sort of shoots its tongue out and kind of strangles her. And I thought, oh, she's dead. No, there she is at the breakfast table just chatting to her friends, and thinking, what? What's going on? I mean, I guess it was meant to be a dream, but it's not really kind of clear. So it's just sort of shoddily put together in a sort of in a technical element, but also how it affects the kind of the narrative as well. The effects are cheap. Like I said, I actually quite like the practical makeup here. But I think maybe they should have stayed away from some of the kind of the green screen CGI effects. I didn't think it needed it. I mean, maybe sort of, there's a couple of sequences where they have this kind of like glowing, I think it's like sort of dry ice that's coming down the stairs, which looks okay, but there's like CGI bats or something, and it's just like, just don't have that. I mean, it looks better without it. Unnecessary. It makes it look unnecessarily cheap. The acting, as I've mentioned, isn't strong. Some fare better than others, but there are some pretty poor performances here as well. And it seems sometimes that the camera feels like it's just been left rolling, and sort of, you know, the actors are kind of left spinning their wheels to a certain degree, and are kind of like trying to, you know, continue the conversation on, maybe they're sort of improvising to a degree, but it doesn't feel like it's particularly tight, and the actors aren't particularly kind of strong in some circumstances. You know, and, you know, I hate to say this, but we've got a story about an incubus whose goal is to impregnate women. I don't know if middle-aged women were probably the prime target in this case. I mean, maybe it's magic, and he can you know, get women later on in their life pregnant. I don't know. I guess beggars can't be choosers if you're a demon, but there you go. The overall production is just, as I say, very, very cheap. If you're not a fan of the kind of the gonzo, unpolished sort of style B movies, then, you know, maybe this isn't going to be the one for you. But it had an entertainment value, I have to say. Some of the kind of like the you know, swing for the fences kind of attitude that I feel this movie had, did make it an entertaining movie at the very least, albeit one that is, I think, on the shoddier side. I'll give it a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think? Leave me a comment, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.